Thank you guys for joining us today. We're going to go ahead and get started with today's webinar series. This is part 3 of our Navigating Uncertain Times series. My name is Matthew Beal. I am a product marketing manager here at Storable. I've got 11 years working in the technology space, and specifically with the last 4 serving the folks in the self-storage industry. I'm going to be your host for this webinar series that we're hosting every Friday at 11 a.m. Central. We've already had a couple that we've done over the last couple of weeks that are available for watching on demand at blog.storable.com. And then we'll also be hosting these for the foreseeable future. And so before we get started, I wanted to take you guys on a brief introduction into where we've come and where we're going. Last week on 3/27, we had an operator roundtable. And this operator roundtable was focused on bringing 3 sophisticated operators together that brought a wide array of experience in the industry. And they were able to loan their perspective on how they've been adjusting to this new market that's been affected by COVID-19. And so we spent a lot of time focused on immediate problems that you guys are trying to solve, things that we are hearing in the industry. So for example, that might have been shelter in place and social distancing, and how you can create a safe and seamless experience for both your tenants, but also your employees. We also spent a little time talking about things like national state of emergency being declared and price gouging and concerns and what you can do to address those. And this week, we have Chuck Gordon, the CEO of Storable, who's going to be giving a state of the industry that's informed by our unique position here in the industry. And so that is in particular that we have the opportunity to help operators, both large and small, solve all kinds of needs ranging from marketing and operational issues. So we're very excited about that. We'll do that momentarily. But I wanted to give you a quick peek into next week's webinar as well. We're going to be hosting another roundtable with a different group of expert operators to discuss the shifts that are happening in the storage industry resulting from COVID. But we're excited to announce that those questions are going to be entirely sourced from you guys, the attendees of the webinar. So on Monday, be on the lookout. You'll receive an email from the Storable team that contains a survey. In that survey, you can submit any kinds of questions you want to hear from the panel, and then we will use that to inform that content. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce Chuck Gordon, the CEO of Storable, who's going to be taking us through the state of the industry today. Chuck, go ahead.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. Really appreciate it. Excited to be here talking to all of you today. So we're going to talk about a lot of interesting things here in this webinar, but first I just wanted to give you a quick overview of the Storable approach to COVID-19 and kind of what we're doing at a high level. So first and foremost, the number one thing was the safety of our employees and their families. So we've actually been working from home for now. This will be the end of our 3rd full week. And we've been providing a ton of resources and different things for our team to use to actually be effective in their work at home and to stay safe. And we've been adjusting our approach. You know, we've been learning how to do everything on Zoom video conferences. We've been getting creative on our company chat platform, Slack. We've been making a lot of fun videos, but you know, it's different. It's a different world. And we've been doing all of that so that we can focus on what really matters to you, which is continuing to deliver on our client experience promise. And there's 2 kind of key parts of that. First is make sure we're delivering reliable technology. And that consists of ensuring that all of our software programs are functioning well and that we're developing new features and improving them all the time. And the second is that we're maintaining great service and support. And so as a result of a number of investments we actually made over the last 1.5 years, we've been able to completely transition to work from home across all of our support teams. And believe it or not, we've actually seen a slight uptick in our response times as a result. So the net of that is we believe serving our customers is super, super, super important during this time, and we've been maniacally focused on making it happen, and so far so good. And so the last part is we see ourselves as having a unique vantage point in the industry during these uncertain times. And so we're trying to take advantage of that and share the knowledge that we have to help everyone in the industry. And just some context on that, we have more than 25,000 storage facilities using at least one of our products. So we kind of have a broad view of what's going on out there. We have a lot of members on our 300+ person team who've been in this industry for a really long time, some of them more than 20 years. We just have deep industry expertise. And then finally, we have really strong relationships with our customers, other vendors, industry associations, and so we can leverage all of that to have a pretty unique view on developments day to day. And so with all of that put together, we feel like it's our responsibility to not only continue to serve our customers, but also to share interesting information that we have that could be helpful for all of you out there operating day in and day out. And it's all part of the theme of kind of coming together as one industry during such a hard time. We believe we can help each other, and we intend to be part of that effort to make sure that every operator can navigate these uncertain times a little bit more clearly. So in terms of what we're going to talk about today, first thing is storage industry trends. The next is going to be government action that's been taken. And the third is some points about contactless tenant experience. So on the first one, storage industry trends, with as many of you know, one of our products is Sparefoot, and that marketplace powers a number of different websites that have more than 9 million unique visitors per year. So we have very unique visibility into a number of consumer trends that are impacting the industry. So I'm going to walk through some of those today, but for the avoidance of doubt, I just wanted to be clear that none of the data I'm going to show here is from any of our software systems, SiteLink or StoreEdge, as we never mine or share any of that data. All of this is from our consumer-facing websites on Sparefoot. I'd also like to note that this data that I am going to show you is confidential and proprietary to Sparefoot, meaning it's not something that I would normally share outside of the company. But given the world we find ourselves in, I'm opening things up a bit in an effort to help our customers and the industry. So the first slide we're going to look at here is Google search trends. So we've seen for years that the number of people searching for storage near me has continued to grow. However, the coronavirus crisis has changed that a little bit, and we've seen a decline in those searches. Specifically over the last 2 weeks, we've seen the volume decrease, the figures from 2019. Now, I think it's important to note here that they haven't gone down that much. It's not like we've seen the bottom fall out, but they are a little bit down year over year. Related, this slide shows the visitors to the Sparefoot marketplace. So this means all of the unique consumers who come to any of our websites. And kind of similar to what we saw in the Google data, traffic was pacing well ahead of 2019 until about 2 weeks ago when the crisis began to disrupt normal storage shopping patterns. But an encouraging sign that we're seeing here is that that wasn't present in the Google data is that site traffic is starting to trend back upward a little bit. You can see the bottom of that U-shaped curve there on the blue line. This could indicate that we're starting to see the need for storage in the context of the crisis begin to trend upward, but it could just be an aberration as well. It's just something we need to continue to watch. Again, something to underscore here is it may not be up a lot year over year, but it's also not down a lot year over year. And when you compare these figures and really all the numbers that are happening in self-storage right now to other industries like hospitality or transportation, we're very lucky to be where we are because the bottom is not falling out. And in those industries, you know, it's kind of like they were driving 100 miles an hour and they hit a brick wall, and you know, their normal figures have gone to nearly zero. That's just not what's happening in self-storage. So on the next slide, you can see these are the Sparefoot marketplace reservations on a year-over-year basis. So this is usually a pretty good measure of storage demand. And we've also seen that this spiked in March, but it's come back down to kind of regular levels now. But again, it's just slightly negative year over year. It's really not wildly out of line with what we might be expecting right now. This is an interesting slide here. So the green line shows the number of or the percentage in year-over-year growth of people who used a .edu email address to book a storage unit. So in the middle of March, we saw a giant 1,100% spike in that figure. And we attribute that to colleges closing early and students moving out in March instead of May. So this is really just an interesting pattern. I don't think this is a net positive necessarily for self-storage. It just means the volume that would have happened in May happened in March. This next one here shows specifically reservation data cut by certain metro areas. And I think the takeaway here is the data shows a similar decline after the spike in college-related reservations that we saw over the last couple weeks. And it's particularly true in areas where there's a denser college population like Boston. So you'll also notice that reservations in both LA and New York have begun to decline a little bit more sharply than other metro areas represented here. But again, the same theme of the bottom not falling out is still true. And then this last slide here is the number of hidden facilities on SpareFoot relative to March 1st. And so what a hidden facility is, it's basically if you're listed on SpareFoot, you're live, and if you decide to deactivate your listing, you become hidden. And so I think looking at hidden facilities on SpareFoot is a pretty good barometer of whether storage is open for business or not across the country. And while this chart might look like the number has gone up a lot, the peak value is actually only 273, and that's out of more than 14,000 facilities listed on SpareFoot. So the net is very, very, very few storage facilities have said, hey, we're not open for business right now during this crisis. And even those that did, which were very few, seem to be trending in the direction of coming back online now that they figured out how to operate in a contactless and safe way. So the main takeaways from all that data is that Google and SpareFoot traffic are down slightly, as well as reservations, but the bottom has not fallen out. Consumers still need storage. America needs storage, and the storage industry has stayed open to serve our people. College reservations spiked early, meaning I wouldn't be expecting May to go way up like it normally does, but it just happened in March instead. The densest metro areas are feeling it the most, but overall self-storage is very much open for business, and there's very few operators who are closed. So there's obviously a lot of variables going on here, and we don't exactly know what's going to happen in the coming days and weeks. But so far, I'm encouraged by the signs we're seeing. And we've seen in the past how our industry has remained resilient in down markets. And we're hopeful that that's the signals that we're seeing here as well. So again, this is something I've been talking to the Storable team about on repeat. We are extremely lucky to be in self-storage. We're extremely lucky to be in such a resilient industry. And we're in a unique position to be able to help the American people get access to their stuff and store their things in a time of need. So the next section I'm going to go through here is about government and legislative action. And the first thing I wanted to touch on here was that we have universally seen that any state government that has declared the closure of non-essential businesses has either categorized storage as essential or not mentioned it at all, which from a practical standpoint means storage can remain open for business across the country. This is was kind of an unknown 2 weeks ago what the government was going to do here, but I think the reason behind all of this is Americans are really confined to their homes. That's all we have today right now as Americans, and self-storage is really just an extension of your home, and it seems like the governments in various states have recognized that and have allowed self-storage to remain open for that reason. Beyond that, of course, self-storage does serve a lot of very essential industries like healthcare and medical device companies, and so we're really actually helping out a lot. Some other parts of government action so far are the workforce relief efforts, and so there's a few different components here. The government has authorized one-time cash payments for adults and a little bit extra for children, which should help the average American. Unemployment enhancements, a broader definition of who is eligible for unemployment, an increased benefit value, and an extension to the length that each person will receive those benefits has been enacted. And then finally, the tax deadline for filing everyone's taxes has been extended from April 15th to July 15th. So we're hopeful that some of these efforts will have a positive impact on the self-storage industry's tenants' ability to pay their bills. And then the last part of the government section here is the stimulus bills related to small business relief. And there's a few different parts of this. The first one is emergency grants, where businesses can apply for up to $10,000 of emergency funds to cover immediate operating costs related to COVID. The second is existing loan reliefs. So loans that can cover up to 6 months of payments for small businesses that are already taking advantage of SBA loans, which I know are popular in the self-storage industry. And then payroll reimbursement is probably the biggest one here, which is loans of up to $10 million per business to help small businesses maintain payroll, keep workers on the books, or pay for rent, mortgage, or existing debt. And the key part here is that these loans can be forgiven, provided that workers stay employed through the end of June. So this is an interesting opportunity. You know, if you've thought about or thinking about needing to potentially lay off some of your staff because you don't need as many in the store, you may be able to take advantage of this payroll reimbursement loan and ultimately have it forgiven and not have to let go of any of your team. So I'm not a lawyer, I can't tell you exactly if you qualify or not, but I would recommend looking into this and seeing if it's something that might make sense for your business. And then the last part of our webinar today is talking about the contactless tenant experience, which is of course front and center in the world of coronavirus. So it's more important than ever right now to provide storage shoppers and tenants the tools to engage with you via digital channels. And whether that's simply paying a bill online or going through the entire move-in process, we or operators in the industry have got to find ways to limit interaction between their staff and customers. So we kind of took a look around our different customers and figured out what were the key capabilities that folks are using to actually make this happen. So the first is having a web-based interface. And so I know this is probably a little bit self-serving since we offer multiple web-based software platforms, or it might sound like it is, but obviously it's impossible to work from home unless you have a web-based software. So we've seen, interestingly, a very strong increased demand from people who are using desktop-based software saying, hey, okay, it's time for me to actually upgrade to a web-based software so that I can operate in this contactless world. So that's kind of the baseline that you need. And the second is online move-ins. So to limit the interaction between staff and storage shoppers and to remove barriers to renting to new tenants, a lot of operators are opting to offer online move-ins. So in doing so, they can protect their staff while maximizing move-ins during this period of social distancing. And then a critical part of that is e-sign. So e-sign is the ability to sign documents electronically. And this is obviously a critical capability to make online move-ins or contactless move-ins possible. And interestingly, we've seen our utilization of that feature within our softwares go up more than 20% in the last 30 days. So a lot of our customers are doing new rentals completely touchless and contactless. Some of them who, for whatever reason, must sign something on paper or must collect a payment via cash or check, they're usually doing it now through their mail slot so that there's no actual contact between their staff and tenants. So the next thing is auto pay and online payments. And so with obviously a lot fewer tenants venturing out of their houses, it's important to offer these different flexible payment options. And by offering auto pay and online payments, you're giving your tenants new or different convenient ways to stay current with their payments when they may have normally been paying cash or check. I've also heard stories of operators who are taking advantage of the fact that their managers have a lot of free time to say, hey, let's call down our list of customers who are not on auto pay and get them signed up. And I heard one example of an operator who was able to increase their auto pay enrollment across a very large portfolio of storage facilities by more than 10%, which is pretty enormous. And this is beneficial not just for the tenant and the operator during this time, but also just beneficial to their business going forward. Auto pays are, generally speaking, easier and better for the storage operator. Two-way communication is another important component. With so much uncertainty, it's more important than ever to stay in close communication with your tenants who need it. So when they reach out to you, answer quickly, respond via email, do two-way texting if you have that enabled, and be there for them when they need it. That's been kind of really important so far. And it's obviously the same exact approach we're taking with all of our customers here at Storable. And then finally, price gouging controls. So a lot of states have put price gouging legislation into place via their emergency declarations. And so that means it's really important to review any price increases that you've planned to ensure that they're not violating guidelines within these laws. Each state has a different level at which you are or are not allowed to increase prices during a declared emergency, but it's really important that you look into that and make sure you're not doing anything outside the lines of what's allowed, because I'm sure that the governments will be coming down hard on that later for people who violate those orders. And it's critical that your technology actually allows you to do that. We've been working on some tools to make it easy to pause any planned tenant rate increases so that you can kind of avoid getting yourself into a tough situation. And then finally, for those of you who on the call today who are Storable customers using either SiteLink or StoreEdge, we recently shared information about the different features we offer that can help you and your team through this time. And the features include the stuff that I was just talking about, plus a number of others. And so whether you're a customer of ours or not, if you have questions about any of these capabilities, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. Our team will be happy to help in any possible way that we can. And we just want you to know that we're here for you during this tough time. And please take advantage of that as much as you need. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone for joining today. These are truly unprecedented times, and it's more important than ever that we stay safe and help each other out. We're going to continue to do our part by driving innovation and sharing information. And on that note, I'm looking forward to having you join us for our next Navigating Uncertain Times webinar next week. Thank you. Please stay safe and stay healthy. Matt, I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you, Chuck. That was fantastic. Very much appreciate it. I just have a couple other housekeeping items I wanted to remind everybody of before I let you go. Number one is a reminder that we have launched a blog at blog.storable.com, and you can go there to watch the previous recordings of webinars, including this one as well. And then next week, we will be hosting another operator roundtable that Chuck alluded to, where we're going to be sourcing your questions and using that to populate the content. So be on the lookout from an email from us on Monday with a survey that gives you the opportunity to submit your questions, and we will be sure to put that in front of the panel. But other than that, if you guys have any questions, concerns, feedback, feel free to use the email address on this slide here, webinars@storable.com, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Other than that, take care of yourself and your loved ones, and we will see you guys next week at the Operator Roundtable.